Welcome back to The Watch, and we just watched Dune Part 2. Now, after leaving the cinemas, we haven't said a word to each other, but I get a feeling I might know what your guys' thoughts are.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
Well, first I want to hear your guys.
Oh, I want to know what you think.
yeah,
Our thoughts are. Like,
It was bloody brilliant. I loved it.
How much do you know of the Dune lore? Like,
Nothing.
great. That's exactly what I thought would happen. Okay, all right.
You've got a spicy take here.
No, I don't.
no.
I really don't.
Okay.
I just want to get in. I don't want to get into spoilers yet either. I just want to say that I think that this film was fantastic with one caveat. And I think people who don't know anything about the lore will love it. It was a brilliant film. Art direction, visual effects, sound design, everything about this film is immaculate, and they almost hit all of the story notes, like all the most important ones, which is really good. But there's a caveat in there.
Oh, we'll get to it. Let's
to
share
it.
some general thoughts.
well, I'm the exact same. Like, as someone who hasn't read the books yet, I love the aesthetic and the setting. I love that dystopian sci-fi. It's my favorite genre, I think, and it's a movie that we haven't. When we review movies here at Night's Watch, very rarely do I forget while watching the movie that I am not reviewing a show. Like Madam Web, I was present through that the whole time. Like, this is awful, writing sucks. There were parts in here where I was like, oh, Shad's next to me and I'm tired. Like, I'm watching this movie. Like, you get so engrossed in it and the story was so rich that...
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was engrossed the entire time. I was sucked in, taken to another world, and I was on board. Wow.
I will admit, for me, it was just that little bit too long. Near the crossover to the end, I thought they were going to do like a to be continued thing because it was like
I'm
building up a lot.
glad they didn't.
Glad they didn't, but at the same time, physically, I was yawning a bit because I was like, okay, we're going on for it's
See,
one of those movies you got to strap in for.
I didn't feel the time at all. I was just sucked in the whole ride. I mean, like Madam Web, that felt like a
That was a
long
torture
film.
session,
That was
yes.
that was a drag.
But this was a good movie.
I mean, this reminded me what cinema can actually be like. We have been missing something like this for so long, an actual great film that you are just completely absorbed in, and it then stays with you after the credits drop, right? And like, no wonder the box office has been dying when you now get such a good film that stands as a massive contrast, because not only is it dynamic and engaging and it's epic and it's full on, right? But you mentioned the visuals.
Visuals are fantastic.
Oh, I would almost say flawless.
There was only one issue I had with the film from a technical level, and that was so small, one little thing. It wasn't even a visual thing, it was a sound thing. There was one line where Paul says something to the Baron. The music is so loud, I don't know what he said, because he like whispers it, and I literally have no idea what he said there. But apart from that, that might just be a cinema thing.
I think I might know what he said, because if we get to the scene, maybe into the spoilers section of the review. But like, holy crap, right? The visuals were amazing. And there were moments where I was just blown away. Like, there is a scene where you see 3 sandworms coming in over the thing. I was just like, whoa.
Like, I haven't had a feast for you guys like this since like The Dark Knight, like type of film. Like, that's the one you go to and you just go, that explosion was nice. I could feel the heat off the screen. Like, it was good.
And like, let's just contrast this to say The Flash. Do you remember the visuals in The Flash, guys? Or really any modern film these days.
All right, let's put it this way. All right, do we all recommend you watch it?
Hell yes.
Yes.
Do we all think it's good?
Yeah.
What would you give it out of 10?
I've got complicated feelings, but first you guys.
I will go with a 8.5.
I don't know, because I have to talk about spoilers first, because I haven't really decided on it. Like, it's fantastic, and I will watch it again, and I don't hate it or anything like that. There's just one thing at the end.
I agree with you. You know what I'm going to say, and my 0.5 or like 1.5 point is all because of that.
Really
I think if we move on
interesting.
from that and talk about like everything in this movie is perfect except for, I would say, one particular person who
All right.
ruined it.
We'll talk about
Like,
We'll get there. Okay, so I got so much enjoyment out of this, right? My enjoyment score is like a 10 out of 10, but that is weighed against the fact that we've had such crap films that have
Yes,
never...
this is a good film, yeah.
It's a really good film, and then it's the water in the drought kind of effect where I'm just so grateful that we were able to go watch a film and just experience the height of cinema, what it can actually be, right? And there's that idea of like, oh, cinema type of thing, where this is actually... might actually qualify for that. You know?
So one of my biggest concerns going into this was fitting all the story into the second part, because in the first part they don't really get far in the story, and then I was very concerned in this one because they were only doing 2 instead of a trilogy. I reckon it should have been a trilogy because there's enough there. They had to rush through things with this film.
I didn't feel rushed to it, though.
They didn't have to, but they were kind of getting through things rather quickly towards the end of the film, where these things were supposed... Like, how long do you think he was fighting the Harkonnens with the Fremen? How long do you think? From the movie, what impression do you get?
As in how much time?
Yeah, how much time passed?
Well, I mean, it has to have been, 9 months or a bit under 9 months because of the baby.
Yeah. There's like a large swath of time passes, but it feels much quicker.
To me, because the baby was like a continual kind of check of where the progression of time is going, I was not feel. I felt natural to me.
Babies with spice are different. It's a law thing. There's a whole thing there. It was just felt like they were trying to get through a lot of story beats, like introducing Fade so late in the game kind of thing. Then we had...
Is that the bad guy?
The younger one.
Yeah, the
young one, because I thought his introduction was great.
His introduction was great, but when it was introduced...
There are some like minor things where I'm just like, what? Maybe they could have done this or done that.
All of that is minor, yes. Yeah, and except for this one thing.
Okay, well, I couldn't call it a flawless film in like interesting, like odd narrative things, but it had so little effect on the film overall. I'm sitting on like a 9 out of 10 for me, right? Yeah. And to me, I enjoyed this so much more than Dune Part 1.
I would agree. Yeah,
like because there's reviews people discussing. They're saying that the Dune Part 1 was good, was better, but for me, because of the way it ended and it didn't have really something massive to because there's some big fights in this and stuff. I got engrossed in this more. I was wowed by this more. And it was a completed story as well. And so for me, I enjoyed this a lot more than Part 1. And Part 1, I was almost like, look, it's a good film, but because it's an incomplete story, I was almost hesitant to really finalize my view. Taken together, because that's what it's really a one, complete story now. Loved it.
Great. Well, because I can't wait until I tell you the lore, how it is. I bet you your opinion's going to go, uh-oh, I shouldn't have said all those things.
Maybe not. Like, I think it's good to judge it on its own kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah, we do that with even Avatar, but then we do compare.
Yeah, he does.
What they
then
could
tell
have
him
done
what
better.
happens, and then he goes, the original's better.
So, those are our ratings. Brilliant film. Like, if you want just, like, one of those films that come across very rarely, go and watch it. This is a great film.
It is a good film. It is a very good film. Combined with Part 1 and 2, when you can watch them like back to back, they are very good. They're a very good representation. Like, I really enjoy them. Are we getting into spoilers?
We will. I think one last thing to mention is that the budget on this film is 190 million.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just find it such an interesting contrast when you compare it to other 200 million budgets. Wasn't the Marvels like that or something?
Some of the Marvel stuff.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. And again, compare and contrast. Like the quality of this film, just even visually, let alone everything else, the acting and just I feel there was such brilliant cinematography in this, where the choices of how they get a pan from one camera to another, to the music, to the way that they're carrying the story forward and keeping you engaged, it was just brilliant, almost flawless, I would say. And my point of reference to that, I thought wow, they're doing something really amazing here. Was it's not really a spoiler, but because you can it's foreshadowed a bit. It's the sandworm riding scene. There is the build up to that, except for when there's a moment where, the kind of victory moment. Everything before then, there's no music. It's just sound effects. And they're just letting the scene draw you in. And I was like, It was. I was nervous. I was engaged, right? And they didn't even need music to do that. And that is showing that, wow, they are doing some really good visual storytelling here to hook me in so much that no music, just the raw actions of what's going on.
Well, they do it again the same. Whenever emotions be built, they put in music. But like one of the last fight scenes you see, the music cuts when they start to fight, and then their sound is what you're engaged with. Like yeah, there's artistry in this film.
True artistry, and so that gives me, for me, huge
It reminded
praise.
me of Oppenheimer and the sound design in that.
yeah.
Very, very, it draws you in with how they present it to you.
And so this is what happens when you have people with actual talent that takes their time on a project, right? That, it technically has a smaller budget than some of these other films, like Indiana Jones or whatever, that the 200 million budgets, right? And this looked near flawless. I can't even think of a single visual flaw. And then the cinematography, the artistry on display, the way that it engages, the way it tells the story, brilliant! I love it. And so now I think we can get to some spoilers now. So this is the warning. If you don't want spoilers, go watch the film. High recommendation, very high praise and ratings from myself and all of us, I think. And so now we will get into spoilery discussions and maybe a minor thing that, is it like a nitpick, a flaw? It's I do wonder about that there. But overall, yeah, brilliant. So Tyrant, it seems like you have a couple of things to say.
Sure. So, well, let me put it this way. We've got Paul. Everybody knows who Paul is. Yeah, we know who Chani is. Yes. That is his concubine.
Yeah.
That's not my word. That's the word.
books
Yeah, that's
thing.
the books. Yeah. So,
All right, Tyrant just dropped a major spoiler for the series that...
well, I can't. There's no point in me saying anything if I can't tell the spoilers because that's the whole story.
not the few, because people, trust me, they do not want to. But in terms of what you're saying, I think they could still do it.
How? That's the portrayal of Chani in this film.
You think that
is not the portrayal of Chani at all?
Because you think she left him at the end. I'm done with you, basically.
Well, she left him, and not only that, she was trying to. She didn't believe in him the whole thing. That's not. That was.
Really?
This is all. Yeah, that's all inserted. That's not,
Okay. So she was on board with the prophecy in the book.
Yeah.
Was she? Interesting.
She loved him, and they have children or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a massive departure, and that's why the end of this story. I was surprised that they showed the jihad because I didn't think they would show that.
The jihad,
with all the Fremen leaving to basically conquer the galaxy. That is in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that departure, the whole Chani storyline and stuff is kind of weird. It's not.
I mean, if you're comparing it to the books, I guess, but for me, just going in flat, I actually felt that they paced it out well enough. And so my wife tried to read the book, right? And she got checked out because she told me that, and again, we're in the spoiler section now, and we're talking about this current book, right? There's a big time leap when after the time leap, suddenly they're basically married. Well, not married, but they're together, basically. It seems like the movie showed more of that progression than the books. It felt more natural. And even though they don't dwell heaps of time on it, they just, every new scene, they're a bit closer. And there are some interactions that justify it. And then, they're lying next to each other and they're close kind of thing. And the story isn't really focused on that. And I thought it was done all right.
There's no problem with that. The problem is the ending of it.
The ending of it.
With her leaving. That's the problem with that.
Well, I mean, it's going to depend on how they execute the next film then.
The next film isn't on this.
I know, but for the story as is, I think it works. But if there's concerns how they'll adapt it, I can see where you're coming from. And I don't know. I think they've shown enough talent to be able to pull it off.
Okay.
Where they're going. You're not sure?
That's a very big departure from the source material, and you seem very readily able to accept that.
I've always said that changes can be made so long as you make them work.
Yeah, but that ruins the rest of the story, Shad.
I don't know enough to know, I guess.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts?
I personally felt that everyone who was in this film acted to the script except for Zendaya.
Really?
I felt that she, especially recently as of late in terms of pop culture, has felt too big for her own good.
I'm getting a bit tired of her.
And
She's
in
a
this
lot of
film, I felt like she was doing what she had to do, or also pulling strings, like you said, with the story and stuff, that felt very like other actresses were performing in a way that, like, I don't see you as the actress, I see you as character. Zendaya felt very MJ kind of part 2 or 2.0. And it's funny because I also felt, in terms of the story, again, I don't know the lore as much, but her reluctancy to accept him as like the hero, I didn't like. And it's funny actually hearing that now, that wasn't originally in the material, because I was like, because they grow together.
You have
and
a
then
point.
They basically just fall apart when he decides, not that he's the Messiah, but when he decides you're going to be my wife instead. And then she goes, oh, all right, I'm bouncing out now.
Like, to me, their relationship started to fray when he actually accepted the prophecy thing, and that's when he was, doing the speech in front of everyone. And look, I think you have a point in the sense that he's fulfilling some very specific prophecies.
And she's just denying it all and being like, this is another tradition type thing. Again, this is kind of, what's going to happen in the future, was he was saying, oh, she'll come around eventually. Like, you'll accept me eventually. But by the end of the film, she doesn't. So that also leaves me to question, okay,
what prophecy is, because it's weird. Like, it's revealed
he can
that
see the future.
He sees multiple futures, and he's like, I see a narrow path where we can prevail. All right. So in terms of performances, what's the main actor's name? What's his name?
Timothy something.
Timothy Chalamet.
Shabba. All right. I think he nailed the delivery in certain moments, especially that big speech where he's, getting everyone onto his side and he's got some real oomph. He still doesn't visually suit the role for me. That was like, but I guess, it's a minor thing and didn't really bother me. But I don't know, when you're seeing like a guy who's going to be leading, you think of Aragorn or Conan the Barbarian or someone. He suits Willy Wonka. But this role, but the thing is, though, he did come through with a performance, I reckon. In fact, everyone really did. And Zendaya is that kind of like...
She was that weak link, I felt like.
I mean, I didn't see it too much, but if I was to try and point out which actor probably, wasn't as good as everyone else, it would be her. But it wasn't really bothering me.
I think the thing that struck me was the fact that everyone felt like their own different characters, when Zaya felt like she was playing herself. All the roles I've seen it in are similar things of, I like the main character, but also I'm kind of bitter and, a pessimist about it all. And she's the same character again in here, where other actors I saw act in this film, I was like, you are this character who you're introducing me to, who are different, unique, and a lot of them felt very, out of this world, where the main two characters for me felt the most like themselves. And I think that's the thing that ruined it for me, was that they weren't acting so much as they were just playing their personalities. But that's, again, just small little gripes I have with this film.
Well, what was your guys' favourite part of the film, I reckon? I'll let you mull it over a bit and think. So for me, I loved the scale, and the action and the battles, and a lot of just the fighting. I got really sucked in. I really liked the bad guy. The younger bad guy they introduced. I found him very menacing and convincing in the role. A great antagonist, what type of guy that you want to see defeated because he's so creepy and vile and type of stuff. And I also got an immense amount of satisfaction with the taking kind of justice against the Harkonnens, especially when there's over the fat guy and just says, because was this the word that you couldn't hear when he's kneeling over the...
No, I heard him say grandfather.
Yeah, okay.
He said a word after that I didn't hear.
I'm trying to remember now, because I remember hearing about it.
Well, it was grandfather, and then I forgot the rest too.
Yeah, something called like... now I can't remember. I don't, but
they go back.
I remember hearing it. Yeah.
Oh, what a shame.
So those are some of the standout moments for me.
I don't know. For me, I was engaged and loved it all up until he had to go drink the blue juice, and then it kind of waddled around a little bit for me. And then obviously when they went to do the main finale, that's when I was getting engaged. So just that little, I can't say my favorite, but I can tell the part where I was most disengaged. Like the opening part when they're attacking and they're fighting and they're doing guerrilla warfare stuff. I love that stuff, especially when there were one of the attacks and then they had to shoot the RPG into the rocket and there's that whole dynamic and stuff. I love it. Love it.
My favorite moment?
Yeah, or a couple, whatever. Yeah.
The final battle was pretty good.
Yeah, that was
There was
epic.
some good stuff there. Yeah.
Really, really cool. Anything else? So there's a couple like things where I was a little. So that fight, right, where they are attacking the sand spice harvester thing, was a really good fight. It was like engaging, and they're hiding behind a thing, and they're doing all this stuff, and then people on ridges just blasted it with lasers, and I was thinking,
Why can't you do that?
yeah, why didn't you lead with that? It's just like they needed something to justify this stuff, and it could have been that they didn't have lasers, and that was the only way they could fight against it. So I was like, oh yeah, this is great, and then they just almost nuke it. I'm like, huh, okay, like, and there's a couple of things like that where I was just like, yeah, and that's like. That's why I'd have to give it a 9. I had to lower my score because there was a couple of moments where I was just like,
Cause and effect doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And this movie has earned a lot more charity than a lot of other films. And if this was in a worse film, I probably would be vastly more critical because everything else is dragging it down. And so, the other thing, because the plot is kind of resting on this, and it's the Emperor's arrival on the planet. That was a gamble. You know, do you think that was justified? Like to warrant the Emperor's going to the planet himself?
I feel like they didn't focus much on the Emperor. They were more focusing on everyone else on the planet. And so when he showed up, it was kind of like, okay, this is progressing the plot. But his daughter was kind of saying stuff in those stories and everything. But
I just think I've just with you kept on commenting on that. I think I've latched on to actually the part of the film that I thought worked worse. It's actually the portrayal of the Emperor, and I don't like. I think that was his performance did not feel regal. Is that what they wanted? They wanted him to look like a weak, feeble kind of man that, you know. And it was weird because at the end when he says your father was weak because he was led by the heart, I was like. Because you're like
his son's just beaten you now.
Yeah,
so.
But also like in terms of portraying strength, you're probably the weakest character in the entire film series at the moment, and so it didn't come off convincing. Maybe that's what they wanted. I don't know, but like the Emperor, I feel the film would have the achievement of besting the Emperor would have had more emotional impact on me if they made the Emperor actually feel intimidating, like there was a grand achievement. He seemed a bit weak. And again, the whole reason why he felt he needed to go in person to the planet, I'm not sure they sold that. He sent him a letter, and we don't know what was in the letter. And so, essentially, it was enough to convince the Emperor to go to DUNE. And it's only revealed from the letter that, Paul Atreides was alive. And that could be a threat because he could reveal that the Emperor wiped out the Atreides, which means the Emperor did something illegal and the other houses would rise against him. So I'm guessing he wanted to ensure to kill, Paul. That's why he went in person?
But then he didn't. He was getting everyone else to try to kill him, and then when he was right there, he just accepted what was.
Yeah, the other question that I have, right, and I don't want to feel like we're focused on it because the film is brilliant, right? But I think these things just, the Harkonnens are having trouble finding the Fremen, but then they find them, because they find them. Suddenly they know where they are and they're bombarding the main city, and I'm like, what happened? How did they find out where they were? I was just like, oh, okay. But is there a law reason for that?
I can think of.
Yeah, they just eventually found them.
I mean, they basically wanted to just blow up the whole place, just to eventually draw them out. So my initial thought was the fact that anything that's a rock, blow it up, and we'll eventually find them.
Well, they show they have they're tracking the planet from orbit, and they're able to register when it seems like when a worm appears and when one of their harvesters go under, and it's like. Should they be able to track the Fremen as they're walking across the desert or something like that? Because then it would be really easy to find them, and why did it take so long? It's like, and so I guess my last kind of thing where I'm like, right, is the shield effectiveness is very inconsistent again.
Yes.
The final battle is brilliant. I love it. But then you see Thanos walking down. The actor who plays for Thanos, and he's fighting the people with the shields, and he is stabbing right through them without any hesitation or stopping. And I'm just like, I thought.
Shields work differently, yeah?
Yeah. Those are the only real kind of nitpicks I could say about the film. Outside of that, there is just heaps of praise for so many really engaging things. Look, I'm a little fuzzy on what the Bene Gesserit are trying to achieve. They seem to be pulling the strings, doing a lot of weird things. And I have no idea why, what they're trying to do. You know, do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Does it make sense in the film? Like,
yes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Like that's pretty much kept the same. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on the film, gentlemen?
I mean, not really. That's kind of it. Like, when you got to praise something, there's only so much we can praise, and we can't break down as much, because the things we're breaking down, I think, are very minute compared to the rest of the film. So,
We can, let me try and go through chronologically if there's anything like you worth commenting on, because it opens up with the Harkonnens basically combing the desert, and it's a pretty cool fight scene. It starts with action. They're basically using the body of the guy that Paul killed at the end of the last film, I don't know, to get their attention. And then they're attracting a worm. They jump onto the top, and they're getting sniped away. And then, Paul has a bit of a fight, and is slowly built, like, proving himself to the Fremen. And I think the progression of their acceptance of Paul was done pretty good as well.
I think so too.
I think it was gradual. He had to earn each step as it goes, to the point of being basically a messiah. Now, he basically embraces it after he drinks the.
Yes, before he's running away from his responsibility, until suddenly they're like, well, you got to drink the thing so then you can see everything, and then he drinks the thing, and then he goes, all right, I accept it all now.
This is, you should already know, we're in spoilers and everything, but I'm kind of glad that I never got through the first, the old film. Like, I got to the part where he joins the Fremen, and then I never finished it. And I haven't read the books, and so I had no idea he was the grandson of the Harkonnen dude.
Yeah.
That was
a good twist.
It was a good review. I was like, okay. And it's one of those twists that I could see that happening. It wasn't explained where the mum came from, except that she was the concubine to the other guy.
Yeah.
And was that something that she did, or that the Duke was doing behind the scenes to plan to?
Who?
So, the Duke, the Harkonnen Duke,
Yeah.
right? And she's his daughter.
Yeah.
Did he send her to, befriend
It's
the
part of the Bene Gesserit breeding.
Bene Gesserit.
They were, yeah.
Because
That's why in the first film the Reverend Mother was so furious that Paul was born, because he was supposed to be a girl, and that's why when that chick bangs Fade and she says it's a female as it's supposed
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why all this was happening, because
Yeah.
Paul was born a male.
Another part that I love, right, is when they're confronting the Emperor, and she says something like abomination. He just goes silence with the power, and she just gets slapped down. Finally, because I hate it. I hate that old lady. And then the bad guy's reaction, where he's like, oh yeah, you got some moves on you, kind of thing. Again, just really, really good moments in that. So one thing that I am just a little cautious on, right, is I could be getting a bit blinded by the whole drought in the desert thing. I was engrossed the whole film, but that does kind of lower my radar, you could say, on being appropriately watchful, because there are some things here and there, and it might deservedly get maybe an 8 out of 10. And I'm still riding the wave, because you were engrossed, I was engaged, riding on the emotions afterwards, and I'm like, I loved it and stuff. And so I'm still kind of sitting on that. If I was to just rate it on my enjoyment, which does get affected by multiple subjective things, still sitting on a solid 9 out of 10. Technically, it might be more fair to give it an 8 out of 10. But honestly, my enjoyment is almost a 10 out of 10. I love this film. I guess the only thing that caused me to go, and I think this is in the book, maybe you can convince me, where he's sitting with the Zendaya, whatever character, and she starts saying those lines, we share everything equally, and stuff. Is that book?
It's more, how to describe it? Not her entire, actually maybe her entire character. Her character in this film was not very. Remember how we read the director's comments, and he was saying, "I wanted to see it through Zendaya's and Lady Jessica's." that was very apparent. Like they focused a lot more on those two characters than I expected. Well, I mean, I expected it because he said it, but I didn't expect that in the film like that.
So more than in the book is what you're saying. Because I didn't...
Well, yeah, like there's moments where something will happen and they focus in on Zendaya instead of like Paul or one of the other people. And it becomes apparent that it's like, okay, but why?
Maybe I'm getting black because to me, she still felt like a side character. So like the story felt...
Did she?
So I don't think so. I reckon she was one of the main characters.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I'm focusing too much on, the story of Paul, what's happening with him, and the prophecy. And
Because a lot of it was her guiding him through. Because with that discussion, it was like, I'm going to teach you how to be a Fremen. Like, I'm going to be the one that guides you through. Like, when it goes to the desert, there's a moment where, like, oh, he's going to go by himself and do this. And then she rocks up and says, actually, I'm going to help you do everything that you need to do to get through. So, yeah, there's parts where she takes control, I guess. But
who would you say is the best, strongest character in the film in terms of acting, performance, engagement, and stuff?
I'll be honest with you, Shad, I don't know all their names, so I couldn't tell you.
Just describe the character. The one who did
a lot of the villains, I think, were very strong as well, very menacing, and they have humanity about them, wanting to have honor, but there was also that element of unsettledness, that, them killing their slaves or doing that all like stuff. I was like, they're villains I hate, but I also understand their menace.
I can't remember his name. Stilgar, that's it, yeah.
Who's he?
The one that believes in Paul right from the beginning.
Yeah.
See, I was going to mention him too. Yeah. Like to me, the most important Fremen character, which actually carries like the whole, engagement and what is resting on the outcome and the future for the Fremen, is not the Zendaya character. It's him, and wow, his performance was great.
Yeah.
Like to me, for those scenes, he kind of carried those scenes really well. You had a chuckle.
Oh, it's just
because that's what Zendaya was meant to be like.
No, it's just future story stuff. Because let me. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but like the Fremen. What do you think of the Fremen?
So this is a good question actually, because it does speak to the larger narrative of the film, and I'm not necessarily on the side of the Fremen, even though they seem to be the least worst. Like the Harkonnens are evil, and that's why I was engaged. I wanted to see the Harkonnens get destroyed. They had great villains, and you just I can't even say I technically like Paul too much. But he's a good character, meaning that he's not trying to lead. He wants the planet to belong to their people. And so those are all good qualities and stuff. And I liked his dad more than him. Seeing his dad get avenged was kind of like, I wanted to see that happen.
Yeah. Something that they I was happy that they did, but then they kind of backed away from it was Paul originally is very aware of what he's doing. He wants revenge, so he's making everything happen. But then halfway through the film, it becomes more like, no, I love Zendaya, so that's what I care about. I didn't like that they did that, because at the start of the film, he's like, I want revenge, and that's what I'm going to do. And then him and his mum basically come up with a plan, and then halfway through, he's like, yeah, I'm not special, I'm not this, but it's like, buddy.
Because this is now the interesting part for the story going forward, is that, I mean, They need to attack the Great Houses because the Great Houses are seemingly going to attack them. They now control the most important planet in the galaxy, and so they are definitely going to come after them. So it's kind of like a defensive war that they need to wage. But the Fremen don't seem particularly noble.
Do they seem very radical?
Yes, they seem cultish and zealot.
Yeah. Well, now they're going on
a jihad.
A jihad, yes. That is what it's called. Yes.
Yes. And so I'm interested in how the future story will engage me. Then, did they portray them accurately though? Is that how they come across the Fremen?
Yeah. They're pretty good.
Well, then that's good then, because that is the impression I got, and I'm not necessarily on their side. I was on the side of House Atreides. They seem like good, decent people. And they got their teeth kicked in, and so I was like, you can give them back. But the Fremen not so much, because they're happy to like ritualistically murder people based on, you're not one of us, and if you are trying to come, like essentially they're gonna let the guy murder Paul, even though it was a trial by combat. It's like no, it was trying to murder someone with a fighting chance, and he happened to win. And so those practices of the Fremen not really win me over to them. Doesn't mean I'm not engaged though. I am engaged. I was like throughout the whole film, and I definitely be checking out the next one, especially if the next one can be as grand as this. Here's an interesting comparison, right? Dune seems to be one of those film franchises now that happens very rarely, right? It's going to be big. How big do you reckon this will be?
I have no idea.
I think it'll be big. I think this would I think it's going to make the other films that came out in the cinemas embarrassed.
Oh, for sure. Well, we haven't had anything to compete with it.
This is a $1 billion film, I reckon, box office wise.
Yeah, I reckon it'll be up there with Avatar.
And unlike Avatar, it's actually a good film. But that's why, because people forget Avatar. This is one that I can see people remembering with fondness and going back and having a bit of a generational holding power.
I think it'll also confuse people, though, because it's not a very simple film to follow along. There is a lot of...
It's not really a good versus evil type thing.
Yes, and there's lots of foreign characters and places and things and laws and rituals that I think, obviously, as people who are more nerdish and like to think about things, we love it. But those who are a bit more layman or casual, whatever, are just going to check out because there's just too much happening. It's not as clear cut.
Yes and no. To me, there is like two levels of plots in this film. One, surface level, really basic. Bad guys killed my dad. They're trying to overtake the planet. I join with the people on the planet, and we're fighting back, and then we fight back, and I get my, justice, revenge, basically. And so that's pretty basic and understandable. Then there are some of the weird plot things, like about, how they find and why the Emperor come, and all that stuff. But then there is the confusing plot stuff about the Bene Gesserit. What the hell are they doing? And what's the go with the prophecy? What's the mum exactly trying to do? And multiple kind of actions that I have no clue on. And it's hard to be able to judge them if it's good writing, logically consistent, because it's not even revealed yet. It's up in the air. I mean, does it make sense in the book? Do they reveal anything about the Bene Gesserit, like why they're doing what they're doing in book one?
Yeah, didn't you say you watched the old film?
Only half of it.
I'm pretty sure, like in the opening monologue, they explain all of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember much of it.
It was the 80s.
I remember the bad-looking shields and the voiced dialogue heaps and all that stuff. And then I didn't want to watch it to spoil anything for the current film, so I've kind of been avoiding it. And so you bring up an interesting point because, unlike, say, Lord of the Rings is uplifting in the sense it's good versus evil, good people never giving up, rising up to fight and suffering but not giving up.
It's a very simple, like, okay, the orcs are bad, we have this stream, we need to destroy it. Like, everything along the way is just kind of olden time medieval gibberish for some people, where this is like, everything is weird.
So when I was saying, like, this is going to have generational holding power, do you think it's going to reach the status of those big film franchises like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter? I mean, because visually it's good enough.
But think about the books. Do you think Lord of the Rings as a book series stands up with Dune? Like, are they on equal ground, or would you say Lord of the Rings has more?
Dune as a book series, actually, here, let's be honest here, okay? Most people only learnt about what Lord of the Rings was when the movies were made. In terms of separate to the movies, Lord of the Rings was probably still a bit more beloved than Dune, but Dune's been around for a while, and it is held strong, and it is regarded as one of the greater sci-fi epics. And if they do a film series that does it justice, which it looks like they're doing, I think this could be one of those next big tentpole kind of cinematic franchises.
Maybe.
And if
there's a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, it gets very... It does. It gets weird. Like, when the first Dune came out, I was like, I have no idea what this is. I'm going to read the wiki. And I read all the book series lore, and I was like, how are they going to do that in a franchise? Like, because there's certain things you can do in books. People go, okay, I accept that because, it's a weird sci-fi fantasy book. Where, like, in a movie, it's weird taking your mum to go see some stuff in the future that's going to happen when you're kind of like... Yeah, Mum, so, like, nothing bad or weird. It's just, well, it is weird, sorry. Like, nothing bad or, like, you can't say it.
Yeah.
So, what do? So, yeah, it's not like Harry Potter, where, like, at the end he defeats the bad guy and, like, they all live happily ever after. It's not like Lord of the Rings, where they go back to the Shire. It's like, stuff happens. I mean, even in this film, I think people won't be upset that Zendaya didn't end up, with the relationship that she wanted. The fact that he was like, give me your daughter as my wife, and like that's how we're going to end it. Like, I think some people are going to be kind of bitter about that because
Well, one, I preferred that because Zendaya was one of the weakest. I was
Yes,
like, oh,
yes.
is she going to be gone?
But think of all
Like,
the
I
Zendaya
was-
stands who right now are like, what do they do to her? Like, she's meant to get the guy. Like, what's... Like,
But this is the thing, like, the princess or whatever, you don't really know where her, loyalties lie, but she did seem like she was expressing some level of regret for House Atreides being bad, and she already, I like her character more than the Zendaya
Yes,
one, and so I was like, yeah, Paul, marry her.
I agree, but at the same time, it's like the plot points aren't as consistent as what regular people kind of want when they're going into a story. And even things like the bad guys, how they, sit and goop or float around in the world. Like, I like that stuff. I kind of like the
Me
weird
too,
stuff.
that's
like,
what I was going to mention.
I love Half-Life. I love that weird alien stuff. But other people will be just checking out from it because they're like, that is licking the knife and then killing. Like, there's so many things in this film where,
that makes it better because
it does, but regular people, Shad, aren't going to be as keen on it.
Because what I really liked about this film was the visual style. This was
Yes.
distinctive. This wasn't just generic science fiction that's either trying to copy Star Wars or Star Trek or just then there's the generic sci-fi look where you see in like Expanse or I
guess the question is, how long can people uphold desert planets? Because I'm just saying.
I am tired of the desert planet things.
Star Wars it just keeps doing it every reboot, going more desert planets, and so that's the other thing too. Like,
That's true.
like, do they go to other planets?
I hope so.
Because whenever they went to the other planet, I was like, oh, I hear birds and water and chirping. Like, this is refreshing. So, I can feel the sand in my mouth. Like, it's, yeah.
That's
like,
to its credit because they for desert filming it felt real. It wasn't like they were on green screens.
Well, like with Avatar, I think, people enjoy them more because it's this kind of utopia, tribal. Last movie we got whales and dolphins and, so in terms of how big it gets.
Well, I'm assuming it does because they're now leaving Dune to go fight on other planets.
I mean, Arrakis becomes like the
central,
the central thing.
It
right?
is. It's got the
got the
super
spice,
space
it's got the
travel
worms,
and stuff. How did they find the planet if they couldn't travel interstellar? Generational, space travel maybe on generational starships.
So back to your question, do I think it can be as big? I think they can if they consistently make good films and they can grow it. Like with many other franchises, they didn't make more, so they stopped growing the franchise. It's possible, but it's also like...
To me, Dune Part 2 is going to win over everyone who was on the fence about Dune Part 1.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people on the fence because of how it ended. But there was a lot of people who loved it, and it probably was the better film of that year, right? But now I think Dune 2 has nailed the landing so much that they've achieved something that nearly no other franchise has that are making films. I think they will have goodwill now. And then when the third Dune film comes out, people are going to rock up. Yes. Opening day, not needing reviews to convince anyone. And if they nail number 3... then they've got something going. How many films can they get out of this series?
It depends where they go with different story elements, and this is something that Nathan said, is that it's not traditional, it's not really good versus evil type thing. So the next film, if they do it on what I think they'll do it on, is not like there's no happy endings type deal, like it's that sort of thing.
I need to mention it because you brought something up, and again, appropriate for the spoiler discussion. Something that I think they did really well, because I didn't know what happened, is that I thought they actually might have had Paul lose in that duel at the end, and they were teasing it. So the fight, yeah. And so the fact that he does start to lose, I went into fight thinking, well, I can't lose. I mean, it's going to be the future and everything. But then when he started to lose, I was like, this is an old book series. He could have easily done a George R. R. Martin and I'd never know about it. And so I was like, he might actually die. And that is brilliant because then I didn't know what was going to happen. And you want that reaction. How'd you feel about the knife bait and switch thing at the very end of the fight?
Was it a bait and switch? I mean, he's not going to lose. We know he's not going to lose.
I felt he could have.
He has a knife here and the guy's like this. It's like...
So I thought they did it all right because it actually was bookending the training fight he had in the first film. Because that's what the teacher does, doesn't he? He shows that there's a hidden knife.
Sure, I guess.
And so, because you see the knife go,
Yeah.
and then they try to play it off like he got stabbed. But
That's a common trope.
Yeah. The thing is, though, he actually did get stabbed in the shoulder. He pushed the
He
shoulder.
got stabbed twice.
Yeah. I think it played well that he could survive that because of the suit. The suit keeps the blood in and would prevent the bleeding.
Sure.
And so I was actually okay with him surviving those wounds, and it wasn't like in death locations, right? And then the reveal that he actually pulled the knife out and stabbed the other guy. I was like, I well done. And because I felt he could have lost, I was engaged. I was like, really cool. So I think that there's potential for this to be big. You said about the second film, but like, how many films could they get out of this year? Because it feels like if they divide the first film into two,
focusing on what? Paul and Chani?
The book series. How big is the books? How many books? So it depends where they choose to stop the story.
Where they choose, what stories they choose to tell.
But how many books are in this universe overall? Then is it like is it a long?
I'm trying to think. In my head, I keep seeing the word 8. I don't think there's 8, but there's not like 50 books, but there's also not 3. Like it's a Chronicles kind of length, I would say.
That's interesting because then they have something big here, and this was made by Warner Brothers, and they needed something.
I was surprised how good it was after I saw Warner Brothers. I was like, oh, okay.
Let me put it this way: there is a lot of stories that can be told here, kind of like Game of Thrones. Like they could pick, the thinking machines. They could pick Duke Leto's childhood. He was pretty cool in his childhood. Like things like that. There's lots of stories if they pursued those things.
Interesting. Now I need to correct myself because Warner Brothers logo came up, but also Universal logo came up.
Yeah,
didn't it?
lots of logos came out.
So it's hard
Legendary.
Yeah. It's made by studios.
Yes.
It's a rare bit of water in a drought, which is kind of appropriate considering Dune is all about water and drought and stuff like that. It would be nice if Hollywood learns from this. Like, you need good films.
All they learn from these things is, okay, we need another movie with people on a desert. We need giant worms and Zendaya to play one of the love interests.
I think they might actually. What other book series we can exploit? That's the hot thing.
Book series, yes, because we've never done that before.
We need to adapt book series now. No, you just need to make good films. Because Deadpool is going to do well, I reckon.
Yeah.
And they might just think. Again, cameos and all
Hugh Jackman, that's what we need.
Yeah, right. No, just make good films. This is, I would even call a great film. I really enjoyed it. Those are all our thoughts, unless there's anything else you guys wanted to share.
That's it for me. That's it.
High recommendation, guys. Check it out. And as always, stay on watch.